If you're looking for a disruptive small cap company in the battery material sector, HPQ Silicon is making big waves with its record setting silicon based anode materials that literally redefine the performance standards of lithium ion batteries. More than just lip service, HPQ is proving to the world by first launching its own proprietary battery in order to pave the way for selling its proprietary silicon anode material directly to battery manufacturers themselves. And the market for silicon anode materials could reach $130 billion in just a few years from now. And today's press release, HPQ Silicon projects annual capacity of 1.5 million HPQ ENDURA Plus batteries. Bernard, welcome back, my
Yes.
friend. We're off to a running start this week.
Yes, decided to wake people up on a positive press release in the morning.
All right, I'm going to jump right into this.
Yeah.
Why are you projecting a capacity of 1.5 million battery cells? Okay, that's great. You're projecting this capacity, but you don't have any customers yet. So what should we know that you know? Because I don't think, at least I don't think, most companies don't talk about big capacity that no one's ever seen before for that company unless they think something's cooking. So what can you tell us?
Well, multiple things. First thing, something was very unclear when we said we entered the battery place. Okay. And I think people don't realize or didn't realize or we didn't explain correctly. The repercussion or the direct impact between the material you produce and how many batteries you can do, how little there is in each battery of that material, therefore you can make a lot of those batteries. Now, we've announced that we can make our own HPQ ENDURA, our own branded batteries, 18650, that has superior performance because we're using our own material, have very, very good performance. We announced that we're going to go commercial. But one of the questions we kept asking is, okay, it's very nice, all these things, but how many batteries can you do? Okay. That's always a question. Are you going to be like a mom and pop with a 500 shares battery, 500 batteries, a year? What's going to be the numbers? What's your capacity? And where's the equation? Where does everything come into it? How do you explain it to people to understand? So, because a lot of this is sort of like ingrained for us at the HPQ and Innovation, we understand this. We probably didn't fully explain from the beginning that with the capacity that we have right now at Innovation, okay, which it's just the capacity we have right there. We can make enough material, okay, that allow us. So we basically said we have a capacity of around 2 tons per year, okay, which is 2,000 kilograms of making the material. But that 2,000 kilograms, and this is the point that people have to understand, that 2,000 kilogram translate into a capacity to make 1.5 million batteries with our special material. Okay. Now there's graphite into it. There's
That
other
says a
part
lot
of it.
about the material. That says a lot about the material, right?
That just small percentage of the material gives you a battery with 30% more improvement. So it is the knowledge, the expertise with regard to what's required in the black box to make that battery. Okay. And it's the capacity for us to make the material. So we control that part of the equation, which allows us then to make batteries. And naturally, you make more money, you get more money revenue wise, for the 2.5 grams you put into it if you sell as a full battery as opposed to just selling your silicone anode. And it's a better way for us to enter the industry and demonstrate what we're doing because 3 things are going to happen, or at least 2 or 3. One of them is we'll start selling our own batteries. And one of the questions we've kept asking is, it's very nice, but, how many batteries could we eventually think be logical for us to go? Because I've asked those questions for potential sellers and potential buyers. Yeah, okay, it's nice, a great batteries. How many can you deliver? That's one of the questions that we address to everybody. The second one is for our potential competitor or potential partners in a certain way. They're suddenly realizing that there's going to be a better battery out there that delivers better performance, and they might show interest in coming working with us for us to work together to develop it and make it grow. So it's all part of the equation of marketing. And the third one is part of the progression to show how a little, okay, capacity improvement going from 2 tons to 50 tons, which is something that HPQ has done in 3 times differently. We did it for the QRR. Okay, we're doing it with the fumed silica, and we're going to be doing it. And actually, this case, we're also going to be doing it, but that'll come up later. We're going to do it for our silicone anode based material. So that's it, it's really to clarify the battery initiative as a whole, as opposed to just us saying we're going to be selling batteries. Now we're explaining the entire rationale, how much material we can do. We have a subcontractor that can assemble those batteries. They can assemble the quantity of batteries that basically the numbers of batteries we're talking about isn't something outside of what they can do. And then that allows us to go when we start marketing to be able to give more certainty about our capacity to deliver batteries.
So is this a press release for your investors, for the investment community? I mean, it's always every press release has some of that in it. Or is this more of a press release for the industry? Because it sounds like you're getting questions from industry, I guess, potential partners, maybe potential customers. It's people, hey, how many batteries can you produce before I look to you, put you into George Com e-bikes or something like that? So who is this more
Mhm.
for, Bernard? Was it more for the investment community or more for the industry? So they finally know, okay, you can do 1.5 million batteries right now.
As a matter of fact, it's like we've always done. It's both. It's done for both markets. So we sort of have a dual press release. Okay. One of them is to inform shareholders when we say that we have started to do some commercial sized batteries, and then we explain it more in details so they understand the rationale, the logic, and the material. There's still going to be some questions about, XYZ. We don't understand exactly that part, but overall, it's relatively simple to do. We have a capacity to make 2 tons of the silicon anode material, and that material can then translate it into 1.5 million batteries. So the information, if you combine all the information with everything that we said, you have a battery that's going to be around 4,000 milliampere if it's an 18650, okay? Can do up all the way to 1,000 cycle. We give out the technical data sheet. We give out those information. So all these things together means it addresses different level of information as a way for going forward. And it's part of explaining our business strategy in the battery area.
No, and of course I start out with that premise that I know it's for both, but which one is it more for? Was this a signal? Is this a shot over bow to the industry? Because when you're saying we're getting questions about our capacity,
Mhm.
I'm assuming, okay, I'm sure a couple of shareholders probably ask you that. Maybe they sent you email or someone's phoned you. But am I making a raw? Am I assuming too much? Where I'm thinking, okay, these questions must be coming from George Com e-bikes and George Com whatever, power tools company. Is that who you're starting to get these questions from? And that's why you want to put it out there for everyone to see?
Well, I won't get into too much detail about who we're talking to and how those things, but it's sort of a mix. It's important to show that we have capacity to make a certain amount so that more and more people can come and approach us with those areas. So it's both, really both, George. I can't really explain if it's more for one or the other. It was just the logical time for us, okay, to explain this part of the dynamic because there are other pieces of the puzzle that are falling into places, and that's going to come another time. But at this specific moment, this was something very important because I was seeing there was a lot of confusion in the message I was getting from people about how we're going to do it, what's the capacity, where we're going to be doing. All those issues were there. So if I can assume correctly that if I get that question from 2, 3 investors, potential clients, the information wasn't clearly out there. So the best way for me to do it, because as a publicly traded company, you have to issue sort of a press release on it and move forward. So that's what we did. It puts everything in perspective, and there'll be more part of that puzzle, okay, that will come in fruition as other basically steps are reached.
Okay. So this is one of those we've talked about this in the past where sometimes you put out a press release and we realize months later or weeks later or whatever, I have no idea, that there's all part of moving chess pieces around a board, I guess. Um, Question for you. What's the
Mhm.
marketing plan? Specifically, look, the good news is there's a massive market for this. The bad news is there's a massive market for this. We've talked about this. You're a small
Mhm.
company. You can't chase after every opportunity. Otherwise, you're going to get none of them, those old fables. So,
Mhm.
are you at the point where you are going to zero in on a vertical? You've talked before about e-bikes. You've talked before about power tools. You've talked before about drones. Um, or are you still kind of scoping the landscape? But at some point, you've got to start narrowing this. So are you narrowing it? And is there a pipeline of interest starting to build? Obviously, there's a pipeline of contracts, as I'm assuming you would have announced that, but are you starting to build that pipeline of interest? Georgecom e-bikes, Georgecom power tools, et cetera, and so on. How much further are you down the road on the marketing side before you get to commercialization?
I think today's press release was an important step in that regard. Basically, we're sort of addressing the market, telling them what's our capacity, which is an important point to say. Look, many of our competitors have said that at one point with their capacity. And then we're going to go looking at, fine tuning those type. And there's also other avenues you haven't talked to, which is we can go approach the Canadian government, Canadian military for having batteries, those type of solution, and home eventually having an homegrown capacity to doing those type of things. So at this point, we're just like presenting the information, making it move forward. Sorry about that. Wait.
I can see you. I'm not
No,
sure.
it's just like there's a phone ringing. Like I just wanted to share it, put it on mute.
Don't worry, we can't hear it anyways, but don't worry
Oh,
about phones.
I keep thinking
It's a
you
good
guys can
sign.
hear.
It means the phone's ringing. I don't have to ask. But keep going. You talk about Canadian government. You talk about things like that. Other.
Well, yeah, we're talking about the Canadian government. We're talking about, there's so many people we can approach with these regards and develop it. So we're going to start focusing. I think one of the things we're looking at building is having sort of a dedicated commission-based sales team that's going to start to approach and go after this. We're going to have our website. We're going to have our direct capacity to do those batteries and move that forward. So that's really what we're working on.
But do you have a favorite vertical yet? Is it too early to determine what your preferred vertical is?
Preferred vertical is going to be the first one that signs me a contract, signs me a purchase order. But we don't have any. I honestly, like, if my personal one is right now, it's going to be probably the EV one, not the EV, the bike, the bike,
Electric bikes.
because I think that's one where there is such a massive small scale, small business environment area that could be a good receptor to our batteries, as opposed to trying to go after getting like one massive contract. So it'll be better for our risk just to be like not fully dependent on one contract at the beginning as we start to scale up. But then if your one contract is the government, then something else. So all those things put together, we're excited about this thing. Like the potential are so big. Like
no, we know that, and look, I'm your biggest fan, but I also know that the potential market for anything is really big, and at some point you have to. Let's take Mark Zuckerberg when he launched Facebook. Yeah, he knew that there were 100 million students around the world, around the U.S. or whatever, but he had to focus on Harvard, and then he had to move to the next one. They had to move next one. He couldn't just get them all in one shot.
I don't think Meta has anything close. For us, we're much more we offer a product, okay, that improves the performance of another product that is price competitive. Okay. So fundamentally using ours, you get more oomph for the dollar if you're using the other battery. So we have this competitive advantage into it. We're not like trying to create something completely new. You have to realize the 18650 and 21700 batteries, our batteries are used, they're common, they're theirs. It's not really, I don't think that's a correct analogy, or that's another Bernieism or whatever.
Okay, got it.
But you understand what I'm saying? It's more,
yeah.
There's a market of user for this. Okay, we don't have, like, think about this. I think in a Bixie bike, in a normal Bixie bike, what is there? There's probably like 70 batteries, 70 cells into it. Okay, so even though the number $1.5 million, 1.5 million batteries looks big, or cells, okay, it could also be relatively quickly to sell through the market. So we'll have to find just the right mix at this moment as we work towards scaling it up to, having a capacity to make 50 tons of raw material, which will then increase our capacity to make more batteries. So we just have to play this at the beginning. The idea is get our feet within the industry, start generating revenues, having a plan that's coherent for investors to see, oh, there is a revenue potential to generate this. There is an interesting profit margin. I won't divulge them because the regulators don't really ask me, but
I was
that,
about to ask you that actually, so I guess I can.
well, you can, but I can't really reply because we don't have yet any uh, track record on doing this. So once we do, then we'll be able to talk about it. But still, it's like we're not doing this for zero net gain. Okay. We're doing this because there is a revenue potential, there's a profit potential for us, and there's an interesting business case for us to develop and get that moving, which will fit well in everything that we do. Okay, because as we do this for this, then it becomes much more interesting for people to say, okay, like I really like those batteries, but 1.5 million batteries is not enough for what I'm looking for. I need, $20 million, 20 million batteries a year, which is not far-fetched for a lot of industrial application users. And then there's going to be some people says, I want a bit more power because it's what I use it for. Can you adjust it? So there's going to be a lot of those adjustments. But the goal for us is to start, to be in the industry, to have a batteries that sell, and to just start generating revenues doing this. And
Yeah, put that to perspective for us a little bit, and then I want to talk about your market positioning because you did put some numbers in the press release. But okay, 1.5 million having capacity to produce 1.5 million cells annually this year, next year, in the next
next
12
12
months,
months.
whatever the case
Yeah.
is. Put that in perspective for us. You've talked about an e-bike company. You mentioned that. I didn't really know that company until you had brought up a couple of interviews ago.
Hmm.
A company like that, how many of these battery cells does it need in a given year? Or what's a typical e-bike company need in terms of battery cells per year? So just to
As
help
I,
us put the
I
perspective.
as I said, anybody has an e-bike has those batteries that they have with them that take away and charge them. Okay, there's probably if you open it, there's probably something like 20 cells, 650 cells into it, 20 to 30. So if you have a fleet of, I don't know, 200 of those bike that you rent, multiply this, you see the numbers, and those batteries are going to run through. If you're using the ones that have a shorter life cycle, they'll go away. So, those could be significant markets just to take a look at. That could be relatively easier to pick up, and then we'll go after other ones. We can also end up having where we find a distributor that has a lot of flow through for those type of batteries that says, oh, we don't have this batteries in our catalog of batteries. We want to have it into it. So, as I said, we're still developing our strategy as we move forward. But the key point for us, okay, is that we have a material that's unique. We have demonstrated its capacity to go up to 1,000 cycle. We've demonstrated that we can make a silicone-based anode battery material that can deliver significant good results. So we're moving on the right track.
You put some numbers in the press release where it said comparable cells for the 18650. And I'm always cognizant of new people watching or listening, so I don't want to always be too technical. But comparable batteries, basically, that typically offer lower energy density and shorter cycle life.
Mm-hmm.
Right now are selling for between $450 and $8 US
Mm-hmm.
per.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see yourself pricing these things? And I know it's a case by case basis, but can you go to that upper end? Can you go higher? Or do you have to stay to the lower end because you're an unproven entity? And if George Comey Bike's going to take a chance on you, I'm going to say, hey, Bernard, I need these things at 450, just at least for the first 3 months so I can test them. How do you see your market positioning, given the price ranges you gave us in the press release?
Naturally, our goal would be to try to be the upper end. That's the normal end to be into it. But we make sure that if we are closer to the middle point of the lower end, that we're still very economic and very profitable for us to do. That's the best answer I can give you. Okay, it's going to be market driven demand with regard to those issues and differentiation of our batteries. It's going to be how much people are willing to pay for the extra oomph of our batteries. And we believe that the price increase is not linear, it's very parabolical. But before we deliver onto it, why for us put a number that, may sound, we could put a number we think it could be, okay? And then we come up with something that's not exactly that. People are going to say, "Oh, you've missed it." If you put a ballpark number that's safe, okay,
Yeah.
and then we'll try to beat it. I think that's my best answer
Most
to give.
people, if most people think middle of the road. You know, if
Yeah.
the company tells me between $4.50 and $8, I'm going to think, okay, take the middle of the road, $6.25, something like that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to think.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just me. And other people be super optimistic, and other people be super pessimistic. So here's the big question now. I mean, we've had a lot of important questions, but here's the big question, which is I've always, and I think a lot of people have worked on the assumption that you're doing this in order to have a real life uh, example, proof of concept of how your silicon anode material improves battery life.
Mhm.
But then you give us this, we could take it from 2 tons to 25 tons, sorry, to 50 tons
Mhm.
of your silicon anode material, which is 50 times reduction. I don't know, I guess if it's linear, that takes you up to 75 million batteries. So here's the big question. Do you want to be a battery manufacturer, or do you just want to prove your concept so that when you get up to 50 tons, it's just going to be taken by another battery manufacturer and you're not selling batteries, you're not producing batteries, you're just shipping material all day long? Has that goal changed? I have to ask because obviously this is good news, but at the same time, you know, does that change your internal corporate goals?
It adjusts to market reality. The reality is that if I'm just selling the silicone that's added into this battery, okay, I will get a small sliver of the profit margin within it. Okay. If I can figure out to sell the entire batteries, then just that silicone that I've put into it, which differentiates my batteries, will generate a substantially higher return on me. So in a silly way, okay, it's like, do you want to be a feedstock provider and make a small profit over a massive volume, okay?
Yeah.
Or do you want to go the entire end of the product and make a much larger profit on the entire thing? That's an interesting debate to do. But at where we are right now with a capacity of 2 ton or even 50 tons, if we were just to sell the material, okay, it would the revenue streams, the revenue potential would be minimissimo. I'll give an example with regard to the PureVap QRR. Okay. PureVap QRR is a technical capacity of doing a pilot scale, a Gen 3 QRR has a capacity of 50 tons of material. All right. If we just made the 50 tons of 3N silicone material, which is not yet engineered silicone material for batteries, and that sells for, you know, $3, $4 a, a kilogram, which is $3,400 a ton. Make the number 50 times that. It's not that big. Yet take that same 50-ton capacity, okay, convert it to SiOX material, put it into batteries, and suddenly you're making 40 million times 4. You understand what I'm saying? So at the beginning stage where we are, because we can't really compete over the volume, okay, it's much more beneficial for us to go further down the value chain into the situation. And there's an opportunity for us to do this. We figured a way to do it with a subcontractor at the beginning, and we will study all the evacuation bidding. So I hope you understand what the thinking is when you're just doing the material, okay, you have to go high volume, high capex, high risk while you're developing the technology. If you're taking our route, we can go low capex, low thing, higher profit margin. It's a question is, do you go for high profit margin, slower volume, big volume, lower profit margin? I don't know if that makes sense, but that's really the thinking is right now.
Yeah. Okay. That there's still, I think there's still a lot of elements until you finally figure out once and for all. The market's going to tell you at the end of the day which way to go.
Mhm.
Because on the, yeah, we can't talk everything from here on in will be theory just about that.
Yeah.
Um, I guess if we're going to talk about the 50, if we're going to talk about the 50 tons,
Mhm.
you've said that you've started having financing discussions about that. You must have, again, is that because you've got a great deal of confidence? And I guess I can't ask you what you know in your head, but if you're already having discussions, you can't call up Georgecom Finance and just kick the tires. If you want to have a meeting with me, you have to have a real reason to think that you're going to be scaling up to 50 tons and more and more and more. So what do those discussions look like, and what are you basing that confidence on?
Once again, I'd be cautious what I'm saying, but I have reasons to believe that, that part of the equation will become very, very clear very, very soon.
Wow.
Unfortunately, that part of the equation isn't in my hands. It's in the hands of the third parties that come into it. But, the timing it took for the other organization to give their okay gave us the opportunity to present this, so it makes more sense when we do the other news, which will be coming whenever the other parties tells us go.
So that sounds like there's a potential pipeline there. That sounds like
I
there's
wouldn't have written it if there wasn't a potential pipeline. There was no reason for me to write it, But the cost isn't like massive to build a 50-ton per year system, the first system.
what do you say to people? You've addressed this in the past, and I guess we'll end it here.
Don't want
What
to,
do you
there's a
say to
question of
people who
Agora.
are saying, how could you sell batteries? There, all these big companies are out there. Um, I know usually we're all talking about the small batteries at home. That's not
No.
where you're competing per se, but how do you still size up against Pana? You've talked about before that you've got better performance than the likes of LG and Panasonic.
Mhm.
Are you confident enough to go into meetings now when you're whatever discussions you're having with whoever you're having to say, I've got superior material, I've got superior battery, and I can beat these big brands, even though you don't know me. And do they believe you? Like, how do you cross that chasm?
Well, that's sort of why we're doing it this way, George. It's like I'm not betting the entire house on making this. What we're saying is we have a capacity to make 1.5 million of those batteries. Okay, so we will be able to start showing them in the market. We will be competitive, and we're not going to go. How can I say this? We're not betting the entire house on just winning one horse. There's multiple ways for us to sell it. It's not an abnormal number. As I said, there's multiple market. Um, at this moment, we're smart men, though, so we're not really bothering the big guys. And I don't think they're going to come and bother us
No,
at this moment because we're positioning ourselves in a niche. I think the problem is on if you go with an add-on strategy, said we're going to do $300 million battery. Just take a look at Nordvolt and those type of issues. Okay, so what we're doing is we're going to demonstrate we can do this. We can demonstrate we can make money out of this, and we're going to demonstrate we're going to give an opportunity to some people to have a better batteries than they would have if they use the big boys. And we'll give them probably much more feedback back and forth about how to improve those type of situations. So it'll be a much more development business
collaborative.
friendly philosophy as opposed to this is batteries, this is the number, you buy it, forget calling me about any problems. So I think there's a bit of a market opportunity for us to meet that niche space at the beginning. And then eventually, as our batteries become bigger, then eventually they'll come back to us and says, okay, we want to start working with you guys and see how we can develop. And we're probably going to go see because we were looking at one manufacturer that's marketing those type of batteries and selling them. And we knew our batteries are superior. So eventually, as I said, eventually they might come up and says, wait a minute, let's co-brand this together. Let's work on this. The opportunities are big, but we have to be able to present something that's coherent and clear. Okay. At the
Yeah.
beginning, when we started talking about batteries, it looked fancy. It looked nice. We had 18650 batteries, very exciting. But there was a bit of loose ends, okay, and what we were saying. Now, what I'm trying to do is close those loose ends, make it very clear what we're working on, what's our capacity right now, what we can do, where we can go, and what's the revenue, and how we can scale this up in a way that's coherent with a company our size.
I want to go quickly. Let's do like a rapid fire here. Uh, Common sense. Let's go to Agorcom. A couple of questions were posted. So Common Sense asked some really good questions. Most of them one you've answered, but there's a really good one here that I like. Does HPQ benefit directly financially from this deal, or do we have to wait for North American production setup to see revenue for HPQ?
We're going to be selling them. We're not, how can you say this? We have the capacity to make the batteries. Those batteries HPQ will have, we'll be selling them, we'll be making our profit margin. So yes, we're part of it. It has nothing, it's not because it's, you know, the material is made in France. The first material is made in France. The battery is assembled somewhere else. It'll be sold. Some of them will be sold in North America through our exclusivity. Some of them may be sold in France. But we will be benefiting to it. It's not, we don't need to build our own capacity here to do this at this specific moment.
And then one more question. In what range is the capital needed to build the 50-ton per year facility? Millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions? And is the plan to place this facility in North America or France or both? 5 million.
I would say ballpark figure 5, okay? And yeah, ballpark million, 5 million to build the first one.
Where would you put it? Any thinking? Would it make sense
The
to be with the
I'm
technology
not
partners in France?
I'm not gonna say more, but as part of the discussion with the financing group that we have, there's a specific geographical area where it will be financed. Where the finished product will be installed.
Well, clearly, this is one of those press releases that are setting up future press releases, and I wish we could dive deep more into it. But clearly, from what you're saying, this is setting up. This is a chess move here. This is a setup for something that's coming later, and I just hope that's sooner than later.
I just want to add something.
Of course,
I'll answer Claude directly on Agoracom because he had a question, but I will tell him something. He was asking, secondly, perhaps the biggest question: when exactly did Novation transition from lab scale test batch? Okay, we're now calling Gen 3 with a 2 tons capacity to closely. Our lab scale capacity, 2 ton per year, is a lab scale capacity, guys. Okay, so we basically sat down and said, this is our lab scale capacity. How much? The question I asked them was, with our lab scale capacity we have right now, without us having to invest a penny more, okay, how many batteries could we do on an annual basis? That's where the math came from. This is why this press release came in, because this is basically what can we do with a lab scale equipment that we already have. So I hope that answered your question. There was no need for a big fanfare, big shoot. Braha, it's just, 2 tons per year is basically lab scale size equipment.
well, listen, these are good questions because when someone hears 2 tons, right, you don't know what's required. But tune in for the next edition of As HPQ Silicon Turns, because clearly you're leaving us on a cliffhanger, and I wish I knew what was. But I love the fact that it just sounds like there are serious discussions going on about financing a bigger facility, and this is just me saying it, but I wouldn't be having discussions about financing a bigger facility if I didn't think I had an expectation of bigger sales. So I'm hoping I'm right. I don't think you're going to answer that question, but I'm hoping I'm right. But I think that's the logic most people follow, and we'll wait to hear from you next time. But thanks for setting this one up for us, Bernard. So this feels like part 1 of a trilogy. Part 1, stay tuned for part 2 and part 3. So thank you, my man. Appreciate it as always.
Thanks.
And to everybody at home, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Keep the questions coming. Tune in next time to As Bernard Turns. Have a great day. See you then.
Hey, small cap fam. I hope you loved this interview because more than a dozen people were involved in its production for the sole purpose of making you happy. If so, can you take a moment to support both our awesome guest company and Agoracom? Your engagement means the world to us. First, if you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up by tapping that like button. It's a small gesture that helps this interview reach even more potential investors to discover today's guest. Second, we would love to hear your feedback on this interview, so please leave a comment below. Be sure to keep it clean, but feel free to poke fun at George. If you loved what you heard on today's video and want to dig into our guest company right away, take a look at the links in the description below. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button, and ring the notification bell to never miss another great Agoracom small cap video. Thank you so much. We couldn't do any of this without you. Make sure to come back soon.